we were going to look into the 30 letters. Now, I don't know if that is a good idea to like introduce you to the 30 letters. Maybe you can decide if you want to do that or not, in the sense that it would give you like something to learn, to practice, you know, as you go on. But it is also something that is sort of very embryonic in terms of learning Tibetan language, you know, because we have following up, there is a lot of stuff also to be considered when looking at the syllable, the Tibetan syllable. Maybe we can introduce a few letters with also the way to write them, which I can show you, even though I'm a horrible calligrapher. Even and in on the computer is a little bit better, but still the result is quite horrible. But I can give you an idea of how they are, the letters are written. Okay, so you remember the lines of the alphabet chart, no, this one which you have here, which I can also send you if you like, are hosting all the letters that are pronounced in the same place. So the first one is the, let's say, the deepest in the body. It's in the throat. Then the second line here, now this line is pronounced with a combination of the use of the tongue at the palate, no? Particularly in this case, the front part of the palate, where it starts to descend from the top dome towards the teeth. And for that reason, they're called palatal, no? They are all occlusive sounds, aside from obviously the nasal, meaning you have to close the whole of the oral tract completely. No air can exit. But the closure you do raising your tongue up and towards the front. So when you open, the characteristic sound cha comes up. Cha.
I always wonder why that.
Because that is the aspiration, indicating the aspiration, the second one. No, cha.
I know, but
yes, ka.
and this one looks, when it's the egg, it looks like
Yes, this is a convention. The transcription system is called Wiley, due to the person who like devised it. And actually it was, it's based on Sanskrit. So in Sanskrit, the convention is that the sound cha is represented by ch. Like chakra, no, you write C-A-K-R-A. Yeah, that is the reason. The origin is the chakra. But to tell you the whole story, actually the transcription system was devised by this guy called Tarell Wiley, who was a student of Dejung Rinpoche, one of the first Tibetan lamas to go to the east. He went to go to the west, sorry, he was already in the east. He went to Chicago University and he had a lot of students. He was a really highly educated and also probably realized lama. And for example, one of his students was this one. Another one was Gene Smith, I think, who was mentioned also yesterday, who now has a statue in the University of Chengdu because of having donated large amounts of texts. And he had a number of students who were very much crucial and pivotal in starting Tibetan studies in the West. And actually, the reason why he devised this system was to be able to write Tibetan with the typing machine at that time, no? Or it is a system that does not require any particular accents, dots above, below, and these kind of things, like they are required in Sanskrit, no? So you could, obviously they did not have any machine way to write Tibetan. And so he devised this system here, which has become standard. To be honest, also, nowadays it's obsolete because we have computers and particularly like handheld devices like iPhones, tabs, pads, these kind of things. You don't have a physical keyboard. So when you want to type Tibetan, you just change the keyboard, and I can show you. Like there is an app which is a dictionary of Tibetan, no? You see? I hope you can see it. No, you see it here. And you can, this is an iPhone, so I can only show you that. You press the keyboards and you go to Tibetan, and the keyboard becomes Tibetan. No? So you don't need any transcription anymore. This one is called Tibetan. That's it. But the icon is like this. You see the violet with the 3 Tibetan letters. No, Tibetan English, mostly. Yes. So from Tibetan to English. You can also, maybe it's a good idea to give you this tool because it's an important one here. This is a collaborative dictionary. It is, let's say, another version of the one of the app. But I think it doesn't work here. Decent is allora, yeah, it is called, I copy and paste here, maybe. It's called like this, dictionary.christian/steinert.de. The home you can also leave out. It goes there anyway. Oh no, here. Okay, here you will find a collaborative dictionary, no, in which you can enter both Wiley transcription or Tibetan script. It recognizes both exactly the same. So here you write Rigpa, for example, no, you write it Rigpa, and you get words starting with the one which is only what you search, and words with other syllables that can be combined with the initial word. Then you press here, and you get a wild host variety of equivalents. It's amazing, but it is also very, very, very misleading, problematic. No, repetition of the same information, lots of wrong information, lots of information that is not contextualized. This is a very important thing that maybe I would address next before maybe looking at the letters. Tibetan, there is a saying which is quoted in a grammar book for modern Tibetan that says, half of the words are read by implication, meaning half of the words of Tibetan language you understand properly by the context. No, this is a very important thing to keep in mind. And this makes it very difficult to make a good dictionary. No, And in fact, this dictionary is really very bad. It is both very good, if you like, very good, but also very bad. So why is it very good? Because it's the only one, first of all. Because in the end, if you look well enough, if you are prepared to dig deep enough, you will find that probably you will find the definition you're looking for, the one that suits your context. But it has a host of non-really correct definitions, some which are misleading and some which are outright wrong. Okay. It is a collaborative dictionary. You see, you have two columns, no? And on the left side, you find the author or the source of this. Some are better. Now, for example, Tsepa Rizin is the transcription of a Tibetan English dictionary of Dharma terms. That is quite good. Also, albeit it has very few entries. And then, if you know Sanskrit, there are Sanskrit equivalents. That is also very nice. But it is repetitive, tremendously repetitive. And if you know, there is also Tibetan. This is quite okay. And there are, this one is, not this one, but Negi. Negi Tibetan Sanskrit is a very important dictionary in, I think, 16 or 17 volumes, which is Tibetan Sanskrit, and it is based on a number of sutra texts, in which the translation has been looked at and the original, and he has made it is in paper form originally, but it has been digitized here. Unfortunately, the Sanskrit is in transcription and the Tibetan is in original. And yes, why did I arrive here? In any case, it's a very interesting resource. Another one, which is a way better dictionary, and it's called the Illuminator, with a high degree of humility. It's a dictionary produced in Nepal by Tony Duff and his team. He only puts his name because he has a kind of ego preeminence, and but it's a very good dictionary. It's also collaborative dictionary. The problem is that yeah, the very positive thing is of this dictionary that is describing words also, no? So it gives you a little bit of a context for the words. Now, for example, let's look the same word we searched on the other one, Rigpa. No, you see, he really writes out a kind of a small essay on the word in many cases, particularly important words like this. No, and the problems with this is that it is quite expensive. It is, I think, around 70 pounds, 70 euros. And that every update, even very small, he publishes, you have to buy the whole thing once again. No? And come on, Tony. Yes. Well, ego is fueled also by money. No, not a year. You can buy it once and keep it forever like that. But if you want to upgrade, meaning add new terms that he writes in the meantime, you have to buy it from zero. It is not that he sells you an upgrade for 20 euros or whatever. You always pay 70, which tends to be a lot in, I mean, if you want to upgrade it. Sorry, I did not. Okay. Okay, so this is the dictionary. you have obviously to type in words according to their Tibetan spelling, even if you use, I mean, both if you use Tibetan, Unicode Tibetan, or transcribed in the Wiley system. It will recognize it automatically and show you the Tibetan here, what you search for. So that is, I think, a good tool in any case. But I notice with my students that this is one of the biggest problems. No? How do we work in this sense with our students? When we have like individual class, no, they want to translate a text. They have some idea of a text, and so they look at the text, try and translate it first, and then we meet and we look at the translation together. And using this dictionary, I see that they oftentimes they are completely outside of any reasonable solution for the text because of the dictionary. Because the biggest difficulty is to find out of this, enormous quantity of things that are repeated, your piece of knowledge that you're looking for, and that fits within your text. And very often I notice that they select one that is wrong, completely wrong, no? And obviously then the translation doesn't make sense, no? It seems like when I was a young guy in the school and I studied Greek, ancient Greek, and I had no inclination for studying. So the result of my translations was completely fantasy, and also weird and probably comical. Okay, so yeah, that is in any case it's a tool. We must also say nothing much better than that exists. The 2-3 dictionaries that existed for Tibetan that were printed, one by an Indian employee of the East India Company and spy for the British Raj, was Sarat Chandra Das. Maybe you have heard. He was sent to Tibet to explore the possibility of colonizing Tibet as well. And in the process, he produced a dictionary. And another one was Alexander Csőmakörös, a Hungarian explorer also, who was looking for the origin of Hungarian language and culture, and ended up in Tibet for some reason. And he also produced a grammar and a dictionary. Another one was a Italian a missionary. I think he was Benedictian. I don't know how to call it. Missionary, and he wanted to obviously colonize in his own way the Tibetans, so Christianize them. And it was Orazio della Penna, or Orazio da Pennabilli, who produced a dictionary Tibetan Italian. And another one was another missionary, a German one, and the dictionary was more German in nature, and is the dictionary of Jeschke, Reverend Jeschke. And that's it. Nothing else really exists. So the situation of Tibetan lexicography is really still embryonal into Western languages. There were a few projects, particularly one in the University of Munich in Germany, huge project and so forth. Like in 20 years, they are maybe at the letter Ta or something. So it will take maybe 1 century more or something before. And also paper dictionaries are completely obsolete. No one uses a paper dictionary anymore. In any case, all of the dictionaries I mentioned before are all included within this one in a form or another, no? Maybe mentioned by some other contributors. So that's a problem, honestly. It is a huge problem. And even more than the lack of dictionaries, like, let's say, per se, the problem is dictionaries that are not fit for Tibetan language, no? Yeah, that is the topic I wanted to briefly summarize. And that is the contextuality of Tibetan terms, no? In the Tibetan language, words are used with different meanings in different contexts. So obviously a dictionary should tell you, and the Illuminator partially does that, this one, should tell you what a word means in a certain context, no? So for example, some words can mean things in sutra teachings, in Tantra, in Dzogchen, in medicine, in astrology, in, I don't know, logic, no? And they specialize into having a peculiar meaning belonging to that very context, okay? For example, the word Tugje. Tugje, in general, is the translation of the Sanskrit word karuna, which means compassion. The Tibetan word actually means, this is another, we go from topics that I think are interesting to other topics that maybe are interesting. Tibetan is a language that has a high esteem of addressing things for their dignity, for their honors, no? So it has actually two sets of words, at least. One common or ordinary and one honorific, okay? So Tug is the honorific word for mind. When we find Tug, we may translate it as enlightened mind sometimes, or the mind of a teacher or lama and these kind of things. Je means noble, no? So for the Sanskrit word karuna, which means compassion, they have produced the word noble mind, but noble mind with a capital M, let's say, a noble mind which is belonging already to someone exalted. For that reason, it is a spiritual form of compassion. No, it is not a feeling, so to say. It is not an attitude, but it is knowledge of how things are. No, so this word, you can see how many things it contains already. Normally, it means compassion. In the Dzogchen context, which is one of the sectors of the teaching in which words acquire the most different, it means compassion. It means energy, creative energy, potentiality. It is by compassion that energy gives rise to things, to beings. No, it is like the power of letting go, so to say. Another one is gong. Gong, in general, you see, we are coming also into pronunciation. Gong, gong, like this. You see, this one is written gongs, the gongs, but it's pronounced gong. Gong or gongpa means, generally speaking, in sutra teachings, in tantra teaching, it means intention. What does it mean, intention? It means the thing, for example, the intention of the master, or let's say the intention of the Buddha. What was the intention of the Buddha? The intention of the Buddha was to assist all beings to realize Buddha. No, that's what his intention was. So his intention produced texts, for example, or teachings. So teachings are in accord to his intention. So by intention, you also means the content of the teaching. By this word, gong. No, it was also the way he not figured, but really he devised to produce a path that would cater to any kind of beings. No, you have these qualities, these problems, these capacities. I have a teaching for you, gong. Now that's the idea behind that. In Dzogchen context, it means the condition, the state. Gong, no, Sangeki Gompa does not mean the intention of the Buddha, but it means the state of the Buddha. Why? Because from his state, he takes his intention. And actually, everything that counts is the state in which you want to go, the beings want to go. No? Obviously, it's not exclusive. In some context, even in the Dzogchen, you can translate it as intention. Okay? So many words are dependent on context dependent. Okay. Maybe from these few notes on these few words, you can already see how difficult it is to actually translate Tibetan. No, because each word includes embedded within it already a lot of dharma. No, why we call compassion a noble heart or a noble mind. By the way, Tug is also meaning heart in a way. No, why? Because the mind is represented as living in the heart, is the center of the person. No, and the heart is also let's say less as a word. It is less linked to thought than mind. No, mind is typically something that you instinctively link to thought, to discursive process, and so forth. Noble mind, noble enlightened mind. You see how difficult this is to reproduce. And in fact, I think this is one of the most important things, most also rewarding aspects of Tibetan language that are interesting to explore. No, really words. And that comes back to all what we said yesterday, all the speakers and the topic of yesterday, of this incredible effort by Tibetan translators to produce words that already have a very strong embedded Dharma flavor, Dharma meaning. No? For example, let me go in a few words because I think at this stage it is better to go into that rather than looking the letters. Now we can look at them, a few of them, just as an example of writing. Yes, they should be. Yeah, that is one possibility. We can also, for example, let me mention a few random words that come to my mind. Ndro. This is pronounced ndro. Ndro. It is transcribed like this, but it's pronounced ndro. This is a verb, let's say in basic, you know, or first meaning, that means to go. No, simply a verb meaning to go. So adding a suffix, a wa, this one is pronounced wa in this case, so we will transcribe it as ndroa, like this, droa. Forget about the pronunciation rules, but just, you know, to let you know, the pa, when it is second syllable, is pronounced wa. Okay. Droa, this suffix is something that you can add to any syllable to mean someone who has a relationship with this, with the syllable that comes before. Okay, so technically, droa, if dro means to go, droa is someone who has a relationship with going, someone who goes, someone who goes ahead, who moves. What does it mean, droa? It means beings. Generally, they translate sentient beings, although nothing sentient is in this word. It means simply those who go and never can stop. They continuously go. They go from birth, they live, they die, they reborn, relive, redie, reborn, and so on. They can never sit down a moment and say, okay, I stop here. It's always a going. So you see, this one is a very much Dharma word. If you translate beings, okay, might be a part of what it means, but it does not represent this intrinsic reality that they undergo, no? Or another word which I like to use for these kind of examples is lu. Lu comes also from a verb. Maybe we will have time to talk a little bit about the lost science of verbs in Tibetan. Originally, it is a verb. It means to leave behind, to abandon, to let go because something is left over. Okay. By extension, it means the body. No, the body is what you leave behind while you go. You proceed, you go ahead, and then you leave, from time to time, you leave your body. As a snake, the skin, no? And you go on, you go on. Obviously, it's not you, because there are processes of, the ego is part of the lu, if you like. That individual specific ego of the that specific life, no? So you see, very interesting going into how, and also that is another point that we can make, that this is not necessarily based on Sanskrit or kind of like trying to reproduce Sanskrit words in this case, no? But rather a translation of the meaning of beings, no, of what is their core characteristic, which is a teaching of the Dharma, not a word of the Dharma. Okay, so we can also identify two strategies. One is of translation. One is to literally try to reproduce the Sanskrit original, but when that is not possible, try to represent the meaning. There are many, like Sharira, or Kaya, or Sharira is the more physical body. Kosha. In a way, some do have, yes. Annamaya Kosha, for example, is the illusory body made of food. Yes, I think that was memories from long time ago. That's the gross body. Yes, I was saying maybe, yeah, we can briefly talk, because that is another, let's say, topic in which the Dharma is, in my opinion, very deeply embedded. And that is the world of the king of Tibetan language, which is the verb. Actually, in many languages, the verbs are the unmentioned king. They are the ones who rule this over how all the citizens in the sentence behave. So how the verb is its nature, but even if we want to go beyond that, what the verb means, the action that it represents, determines how the verb is used and how all other elements obey to it. In Tibetan, that is particularly relevant. And it is also, in my opinion, extremely interesting to see how verbs are classified. So there are 4 categories, which are actually 2 opposites. One, it's called Tadepa. And one is called Tamidepa. I transcribed that for you. Tadepa. This is another place in which we find a lot of non-working things in the representation of Western views on Tibetan grammar. I forgot one piece here. I take it from here. So what does it mean, Tadepa, Tamidepa? Tadepa means to divide, to separate. Tamidepa means is the opposite, and it means not to divide, not to separate. So what does it mean? A Tadepa verb is a verb that allows or that represents an action that allows for an undertaking by a subject to enter an object. No, it is much easier explained with the examples. If I take this glass, this one, hopefully you can see it, and I break it, I break the glass. What happens? There is a subject, a doer, me, performing an action to break upon the object. So what happens is that the action to break is performed by me and goes into the glass, and the glass is broken after that. So the action in this we find the Western grammar definition of the same concept, transits from me into the class. The verb is called transitive. But the concept in Tibetan is different. It is that me and the glass, we are different. We are separated. I do something upon this, which is different from me. No? And the relationship between the action and the object is much closer than between the agent and the object. No? Why? Because I break the object is forever broken. And I then think about something else, and I even forget that I broke the glass. But the glass is broken from now to always. The action breaking has entered into the glass as its new condition. Okay? So that is karma in a way, if you like. I have changed the state of this glass. And this glass is now forever changed. So the thing is, I did not change by my action, which is something that is represented by tamidepa verb, verbs that do not separate. For example, I walk. No, verbs of movement. The one doing the action is the same moving. Okay. You do not walk the road, so to say. No, the road does not change at all if you walk or not. Maybe, yes, you leave some trace or something, but it's nothing that the road can't handle. No? The verb, the action of the verb remains with you, with the one doing the action, or with me. Okay. So now we can sort of assimilate the category of tadepa verbs with that of transitive verb. Because transitive actually means the verb transits from a subject to an object. But in Western languages, the relationship between the subject and the verb is closer than that with the object. Or, if you like, the same distance. But in Tibetan, verb and object, they merge. And the subject does something else. This is the reason why Tibetan is a so-called ergative language, meaning a language in which the subject of a transitive verb is not in a nominative case, but he is considered to be the instrument of that action. He's just a transitory instrument for that thing to happen. And it happens to the object and it remains with the object. So the concern and the definition of a transitive verb is actually, or a tadepa verb, sorry, is actually that the object kind of receives within its condition, its states, that action. No? And it is changed. From a certain point of view, we can represent this idea very much better in when we think about English passive construction. No, the glass is broken by me. No, that's the passive form of the same sentence. And if you look, you can only do passive sentences with transitive verbs. You cannot say the road is walked by me. Well, you can say maybe in some poetic expression, but it doesn't make sense. No? Only transitive verbs can produce passive sentences. And the by me idea reproduces this idea of the subject being a little bit aside, a kind of secondary figure. No? But still Tibetan does not have diathesis, it's called, or active and passive sentences. That does not exist in Tibetan. You have only the agent or subject marked by an instrumental marker, no, by means of, through. By means of the king, the enemy is slain. No, that would be the Tibetan construction, the Tibetan way to express. Obviously, the poor enemy, if we can say that, is forever defeated by the, or killed by the king. No, and the king, he forgets about it and goes to his for his banquet in the evening after the enemy is dead. No, so the idea is that it is typically a karmic view of the relationships that are represented by via of the verbs. Obviously, the king who killed the enemy also has his karma, but it is not showing up at this point. It is the enemy whose karma is really showing up. No, he does karma, but he has not experienced the result. The object, that is his experience of the result, and that is what is his main problem. No, if you look at it, karma is not so bad when you do it. It's the result that is the problem. No, maybe when you kill something or some animal, some people, maybe you even enjoy it. There are many people who do so. That's not the retribution. The retribution is when you get killed or when you suffer in consequence of that. You see, so that is how also this idea is embedded within the verb structure, and it is very important when you read Tibetan text to be aware of that, because the language is used with that in mind. Particularly on top of that, we have another couple of opposites that I will not say in Tibetan, because it is a recent category, so to say, and it is voluntary and involuntary verbs. No? Yes, intentional action, non-intentional action. Okay, verbs, actions, in other words, that you can do because you want to do them, and you have a certain amount of control upon the result of that action. Or involuntary verbs, in which maybe you do, no? This is a more blurred, say, category, because the main point is if the result is directly under your control. Okay, not really if you want to do it or not, but if the result comes out when you do the action, if it's certain. For example, voluntary verbs are those verbs that are actually real karma, no? Like doing, killing, eating, all the actions that you do because you want to do. Generally speaking, you plan to do the action, you do the action, you're happy that you have done. That is full karma, no? These are voluntary verbs. Involuntary verbs, instead, are things that you do even though you don't want, no? Things that happen to you. They are minor karma, if you like, secondary karma. For example, many verbs of mental activity are involuntary. No? Like thinking. Very often you have couples of verbs for the same action. One is involuntary, one is voluntary. No? Like you can reflect on something, or you can just sit there and your mind goes. It's involuntary. Or, for example, remembering. No? You want to remember something, but it doesn't stay there. you always forget. It is not under the control of the doer of the action if it happens or not. Another thing about involuntary verbs, or so you just, sorry, let me add another consideration. Involuntary. To fall is involuntary. No, it's a lot of things. Yeah. Yes, I'll come back to that later. But first, let me state that there are combinations, cross combination of verbs that are tadepa but involuntary, and verbs that are tamidepa and voluntary or involuntary. There are all kinds of combinations, no? Particularly the two negated categories, like non-dividing, non-separating, and involuntary, are subject to a lot of nuances and shades of meaning. They are the less, straightforward ones, because they imply a lot of different considerations, no? For example, you think something, no? It is actually a tamidepa verb because your thinking does not go into an object. It is you who thinks. You think something, but that something is not permanently permeated by your thinking. No? I think of this table. This table is completely unaware of that. Or I think of you. No? And you maybe your ears, they say, no, your ears sound, but that's my thing. This thinking stays with me, is not divided from the one who does it. Okay. And also, so this is to say that the intransitive category is not correct to represent the tamidepa verbs, because intransitive means it has not object. It does not transit upon an object. But if I think, no, I think a thought. In Western languages, it transits upon an object, the thought. Thinking is a transitive verb. But here it is tamidepa, it stays with the one who does it. Obviously, there are verbs to say concentrate, to think something productively, no? To concentrate on something, to reflect, and all of these kind of things. And verbs that are involuntary, because that act of thinking goes on without you wanting to do it. No? And so verbs of falling, verbs of dying, being born, no? You are born and you didn't really want. I'm not saying you didn't want, but your wish is not considered in that. No? You die. Also, it's not voluntary, generally speaking. So you see how many things can be represented, embedded in a verb, which are then very difficult to reproduce in translation. Also, you see, involuntary verbs, or involuntary actions, better said, they do not involve that heaviness of karma, no? Because, for example, you walk on the road and you trample upon an ant, for example, maybe in this season, cockroach. You kill it, no? But maybe you didn't even notice. Maybe you drive upon it by a car, no? You didn't want to do it. It's not your full karma, so to say, but you still did it. So that you have to come into, in relationship with, because that happened as a karma of that being, and you did it, and you have to you know, in a way or another, bear the consequences of that. The two, full karma and involuntary karma, are generally represented by the two words dig and drib. Where dig is the negative effects produced by an action done on purpose, like a voluntary transitive action. Maybe I put it here. And the other one is like more a obscuration in terms of how it manifests later on. Dig, you are reborn in hell or whatever. Drib, maybe you lose your hair or something. Even less than that, no? Maybe someone punches you on the road or something. Maybe it's better you lose your hair. Okay, they are transcribed like dig drib. These two make up karma, or its effects, if you like. And so you see, karma is obviously a central topic in all of the Buddha Dharma. And the way that Tibetans have found to add shades of meaning, nuances, and really deep-reaching information within the language is to formulate these two categories, which are not found in Sanskrit. Particularly, obviously, the transitive, intransitive, yes, but the voluntary, involuntary, not. And I should say that it is a category that has always ruled the way how Tibetan verbs are used by the authors, but it also has never been explicitly formulated. It is a very recent idea that has been introduced as a label for Tibetan verbs. It was always there, nevertheless. And another thing that is extremely interesting is that they have these two categories of verbs have two sets of ways in which they are used. Okay, so particularly the transitive verb, the one who does it is marked in a specific way. Let's say we mark the agent of a transitive verb with this. Okay, and this. The finger pointing to the one who did it. Although it should be the other way around, but I can't find it now. So maybe I, for example, marked by this one, who shows this is doing the action. Then the object is marked by this one, which means 0. Actually, the object, the very, very typical Tibetan thing is things can be marked by the absence of a marker. No, you put no mark, that means something. Okay, like emptiness means something. So 0 marker in this construction means the object. No, maybe let's say the cat. Okay, I do something to the cat. Now this also reminds us to the very peculiar structure of Tibetan sentences, which has a precise order, but only one thing is 100% sure and always invariable, which is the verb is in the end of the sentence. Okay, that is the structure. Whenever you have a verb that is the end of the sentence, everything that belongs to that sentence is to the left of the verb. Okay, this is, by the way, you remember Tibetan has this endless flow of syllables. When you identify a verb, you are safe. You can stop there and you can dedicate yourself to that sentence because it's finished. Okay, so in this seemingly endless string of words, syllables, no, you go on, you go on, you go on, and say, oh, ooh, wow, what happens? No, where am I going? No, and suddenly you find the verb, and everything becomes clear. That is also very interesting. So, because verb is the last element. In, for example, in German, verb is in the end. In Latin, verbs is in the end. That happens in a few languages. So you see, with the verb transitive and voluntary, I have to, the author has, language is communication. The author wants to communicate with you, the reader, and he wants to make it clear for you what he's saying. So he tells you that I is the subject of something by putting this marker. So you start, the subject or agent will generally will be at the beginning of a sentence, let's say, no? So I, then follows the object, the cat. I, the cat. Or buy me the cat. Okay, then when you have two elements, you don't know what happens. No, it's a mystery. Very often times reading Tibetan is like cracking puzzles or solving enigmas. Enigmas, how you say? Enigma. I come to the verb, it is like, for example, feed, for which the cat will be grateful. No, I feed the cat. The cat does not have any grammatical marker, so I know it's the object. Okay, so the author can work with this grammar. He can tell you slightly different things. For example, he can take away this one. I mean, this is not common, but it would mean that maybe something fell from my table and the cat ate it. I involuntarily fed the cat. No, but that's what happened. So, I mean, the example is not so good because if you have the verb to feed, it is intrinsically voluntary. No, you want to do that. So let's do another example. An involuntary verb. I know. I know, to know is generally speaking an involuntary verb. No, because the result of that action is not necessarily under your control. You want to know something, but you don't. Okay. You can. The author, more often than with the other variety, can choose to indicate that you are the subject of this action. What does he mean by that? He means that you actually put a lot of effort into knowing. No? Here, the highlight is you really wanting to know. You are really the instrument for wanting to know. Then maybe the result comes, does not come. But he wants to highlight the fact that you exert a lot of effort in the direction of knowing. Or, for example, even stronger is this one. I plus the voluntary verb marker, voluntary transitive verb marker, subject marker, don't know. So I have taught you, I have told you a lot of things. I have pointed you in the right direction, but still, I don't know. It means you really don't want to understand, to know what's going on. No, it is you exerting effort in the contrary direction. So you see, this you can translate, but you have to keep in account very carefully what is meant by this. No, the message or the flavor of the sentence is completely different from, like, say, I don't know. No, I don't know means I didn't happen to cross that information. No, it is not that I put an effort not to knowing. It is not that I had a particular relationship with that object that I didn't know. No, so you see, many things are expressible with this sort of order of ideas. Another interesting thing is that when you have a generic subject, I'm telling you these things as a means of example of the really different and peculiar workings of Tibetan language. No? For example, when you have a generic subject, no, maybe it's better to say Tibetans do. Because to do is the sort of example for voluntary and transitive verb. You do something because you want to do. And this one would need our marker. Okay. It would need, this verb needs a marker that tell us that Tibetans are those who do. But Tibetans is a generic word, no? And you cannot say that all Tibetans have the intention to do this action. All Tibetans really want to do this action, no? That is impossible to say. You cannot ascribe to a large group of differentiated people to want to do the same thing. If you like, you can do, but you do not need to do. Okay, so also in this branch of expressing these ideas of intentionality, always related to karma, you have tools to express a lot of profundity, profound thoughts, no? And you see the preoccupation of Tibetan language is really different from preoccupations in Western languages. No? The focus of attention, what you want to express, what you want to say that actors do, how actions are, is really different. No? They are thinking in karmic terms. We are thinking about just action. No, you do, it's you. Basically, the individual. Yeah. The individual is the core here. So really, really different in that sense. Maybe we can have a short break. No, we make 10 minutes break, and then we will finish with a few letters, if you don't mind. Yeah, sorry. Grazie. Mi fa un netto di prosciutto anche. if looking at these a few letters that we might learn to write down particularly, so that we have an idea of how that works, the writing works, the handwriting. So in general, you can see here the computer fonts for Tibetan letters are a kind of approximation of calligraphic script, Tibetan calligraphic script, in which you can easily identify a few features, particularly that the letters are made up of lines that are of strokes, if you like, that are different in terms of breadth. No, you have lines that are full breadth, others that start, for example, this one, it starts large in the upper part and then goes thinning itself down in the lower part. No, and this happens again and again and again. So this is due to the fact that Tibetan calligraphers used reed pens, no, pens made out of bamboo or other cane, like how you call it? Yeah, pens made out of this, and they were like thin canes in which they cut transversely this way, and then they cut in a perpendicular way like this. No, so when you use the pen like this, it makes a big stroke. When you use it like this, it makes a thin stroke. No, very much in the same way as some Western calligraphic pens work. So the use of this pen in a skillful way produces these big and small tracts. So I can show with a very approximate technique, and also not having a true, designing equipment here in the computer, I can show you how to write. Why? Because it has a definite process and definite approach, order and direction of the strokes. So the order in general is from left to right and from above to below. Generally speaking, Tibetan letters have a body which is which is to be inscribed in an upper square, like which you see here, and sometimes, particularly in composition, with the thing below, okay, with the part below, let's say. But the main place where the letter is unfolding itself is here, this upper square. The upper square is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 width of your pen. No? So your pen has this maximum width, and you make a square of 6 times that. Okay, 6 by 6. And the lower is the same. So you start from the upper part, and you draw, for example, let me maybe write it also. Would be the Tibetan. Well, the computer, sorry, the computer. Oh. Transcription is. Sometimes these things. Yeah. Wow. Okay, how do we write this letter K, the first letter of the alphabet? By the way, it means it often has a meaning of initial, something at the beginning, like a little bit alpha in Western thought, no? Is the first letter of the Greek alphabet. You say, for example, alphabet in English to say the series of letters. That is true in Tibetan also. You can say kaka, no? The first two letters means alphabet. It also means the beginning of something. Maybe you have familiarity with the term kada. Kada, you remember? And kadak. Ka means the beginning, and that means pure. So some have translated that as alpha purity, with the leap of poetic thought. Because actually, it has some sense, because alpha is the first letter of, but the Greek alphabet. So in any case, you see it's made up of 4 strokes. The top stroke is like full length in our square, more or less full length. Then you see from left to right, horizontally. Then the second stroke, you may put like something like this, but this is not nice. Like this, no? If you do a little bit of a curve, the pen produces something more nice. Then you see that is the second stroke, third stroke, and the last stroke is the long one. Yes, yeah. The line is quite straight. Well, I'm not very good as. Ooh, I should look here rather than there. Well, with the computer, I do not have the tools. With the graphic pen, it should be. But I should have a, graphic table, and I don't have it. And I don't want to carry around it. Okay, so then you have this, the tsik indicates the syllable. Okay, so you see, ka is like this. 1 stroke, 2 strokes. You can do it like that. 3 and 4. The letter is always a little bit smaller than the square in which you put it, because you need to have place also for the tseg, and you do not. If you put something, another syllable here, you need some space. No, it does not need to be very much too compressed. So the tseg, now this dot here, if it's absent, this one is not a word. This one is just a letter. It becomes a word or a meaning carrier once you put the stroke, which here is, I should stick to my screen. But I see everyone looking there, so I also look there. Okay, so the seg makes it a actual syllable, an actual word with a meaning. Okay, so this one is transcribed, if you like to look at that, as ka. Let's see the second one, second letter. It would be the same sound with the addition of a aspiration, which in transcription is represented with an H. Ka. 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 The font, oops, is this one. And generally, this one is because it's okay. This one is all fitting in the upper square. No, it all kind of does not exceed into the lower square. So this one is a little easier to make if you start from the next stroke, putting it in the middle stroke like this. Okay, maybe a little more bent. You see, this is the stroke we that occurs a lot of times. No, this one and also this one, the next one, like this, is a stroke going slightly upwards initially and then turning down towards the right. And then you close that like this. And then finally you add the first stroke. That this is exceptional. Why? Because if you do it like this, it is easier to organize your element within the square correctly. If you start with this one, it will be more difficult to have a harmonious organization. You know? Keep in mind, as we said before, that calligraphy is an art understood as a means of making supports for the Dharma practice. And it is also a practice in itself, because when you are copying text, you this is a very much used presence technique, if you like, which can be applied to many things. Whatever you do, like cooking, or by walking, and anything, because it absorbs parts of the mind that usually wander around. No, so it keeps this part of mind focused upon what you're doing, and your rest of the mind can remain concentrated on being there, on being present, being mindful, if you like, or contemplative. For example, contemplating the meaning of the text. No, so ka is the second letter. It's really horrible, to be honest. Yeah, I can't bend it, no, because it's fixed. But it gives you the idea, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Like this. Ka, a mouth, a door, a gate. But also, for example, where a river goes into a lake or into the ocean. I think, to remember. Okay, next one is the ka, low tone, represented in transcription by this tone stuff. We will talk about that another day. In Tibetan, there are 2 tones, one high, one low, as a means for distinguishing words that sound the same, similar. Oh. This one is called the pixel matter. But you can do with any graphic. Okay, now we have the third letter, ka, ka, starts with the usual top stroke. Then we have a little bit bending stroke. Then we have the same stroke that was, you remember, in the ka, no? The third stroke, like this. And then like this. And another stroke that is very much common is the vertical foot, so to say, to the right. That gives kind of the limit, the last element of the letter itself. So we have then the usual dot. Ka, ka. Okay. Then next one is the nasal of the same series. Nga. This one, you see, graphically speaking, is very simple. Even some may say too simple. Just wait. Okay. Yes, it would be easier to have a drawing board. Yeah. To have a whiteboard or blackboard or something. Okay, we have the usual top stroke, like this, full length, if you like. There are different length sizes. And then you have the same stroke as the second one of the previous letter, you remember. And then simply closing like this. With the final stroke, a large variety of the one that closes the two previous ones. No? You remember here and here is similar stroke, similar direction, but a little bit larger. Okay? Nga. This is the one means I. And again, it becomes a word only if you put a dot. Okay? So we can go to the next line. And we will have a salute. We have the palatals. Oops. Cha. Okay. So this one has a top stroke of the shorter variety. It is like justified to the middle, to the vertical middle of the square. And then it starts with another stroke which curves a little bit and goes to the left, like this. It's like a more or less a circle, if you like, a piece of a circle. And then you start from 1/3 of this length. You go horizontally first, and then you turn into another circle, which then meets the previous stroke there. Okay? Cha. Cha. Hmm? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Like this. You can even straighten it out a little bit like this. And then from 1/3, more or less, you start first with a horizontal circle, and then you go down and you meet them like that. This one is said to be this, or the lower part, no, is like the long cell, which is then repeated to the other side, flipped. Okay. Cha. Not cha. Then the next one. What time is it? Oh, we're nearly there. Maybe rather than going with the next ones, I might show you one which is particularly relevant in our context here, but generally relevant. So let me see if I can figure out the correct sequence. T. Yes. This is the ah. Ah. The one you can, it is used very often in the Dzogchen teaching for visualization. So you see it has 3 points in which it touches the top line. You start with the middle one, because once again, that is the easiest way to harmonize the thing. Then from the middle, you start with a stroke like this, very similar to the previous letter. And then you go like this. More or less. I'm a cacographer. Then this one. And then you do the last stroke with a hint of the top line and then going down. Now, this is the A. Remember, it is the A that has to be pronounced while starting with a closed throat. A. 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 Okay.